Hello, I'm Sally Andrews. Uh, I'm
That's okay. Your full name is Sally?
Sally Perry Andrews, and it's nice to be here today and to talk with you.
Well, it's great to have you here. You mentioned your middle name. Where did you get that middle name?
That goes back to Admiral Perry in Lake Erie on my father's side, and if I figured it out correctly, he was my fourth great grandfather.
Is that right?
That's right. And my father's middle name was Perry also. And his mother's middle name was Perry because I'm named after her, Sally Perry. And they named, many of the children had their middle name of Perry. So I named my son. His middle name is David Perry.
You've spent some time looking at family history.
Yes. And my father's family, his sisters and brother, they didn't throw anything away. I have a big scrapbook of about him and all the things that happened and about Admiral Perry and so it's interesting.
I'll bet it is. What's your present family situation, Sally?
I'm married to John, and we have a son named David, as I said, David Perry, and we've lived in Brentwood now for 43 years, and it's been good.
You were born when and where?
I was born in 1928 in Durham, New Hampshire. That's where my father worked.
And some of the earliest memories you have of that period of your life?
Well, to be truthful with you, I can remember my father making me, I loved Italian bread, and he made me peanut butter sandwiches with Italian bread. I still remember that. He died when I was 5, but I do remember him, and I do remember certain things. I remember the big birthday cake, because he was a chef, that he made for me when I was 5 years old. And we had a big birthday party with all my cousins, and I can still see the circle of playing Farmer in the Dell and so forth. But I remember those things. We lived out out in the country a little bit, not right in town in Durham. It was a wonderful place to live.
As a little girl, what were some of your dreams? What were some of your fantasies that you had? Do you recall what you thought about as a little girl?
As a little girl, well, I don't know. When I was a little girl, I was just happy. Mm-hmm. I was happy. But then when my father died, it was moving back to grandma's. My mother felt she couldn't continue with the house, and so she moved back to her parents' home. And we lived on a farm, which I loved, and the animals and a big barn. And it was, and when there was snow, there was loads of it. And picking berries. I remember picking berries, and strawberries, wild strawberries, and blueberries and raspberries. That was a nice time.
What was your mother's full name, Sally?
My mother's name was Lucy Elizabeth Palmer until she married my father. Then it was Barker was added on my name before.
Did you follow her family history at all? Do you know anything about her?
I don't know as much about her family. Her mother came from Canada. She was Canadian French. Her father always lived in Durham or that area, and he wanted to stay there. He didn't want to go to his house. He worked there, and he died there, and he was buried there, and that was his wish.
Tell me about some of the childhood memories that you carry of your mother.
Oh, my mother was always there for us. She worked very hard, and but I always remember from the time we were very little, she always taught us, I don't care what you learn to do, but I want you to learn to do something, because you don't know what's going to happen in your life. And you got to be ready, because she was left with 3 little girls, and it was only in her, middle 20s. So she taught us a good lesson.
She, at that point, had a hard life.
She worked at the University of New Hampshire in the girls' dormitory cleaning. And she never complained, and she worked. And if her rider wasn't there when we were now living in Newmarket, she'd walk to work. a good 5 miles or more. But that didn't happen very often, but she was a worker.
What do you think your mother enjoyed doing if she had had the time or the ability to? What gave her pleasure?
Well, she loved to be with friends, to do things with friends. She loved people. She was always helping people. With the little she had, she was always sharing. She was really a marvelous, wonderful mother, and she's still living, and she turned 91 this month.
Wow,
So
God bless.
she's marvelous.
Now, you mentioned you lost your father when you were very young.
I was 5.
Can you tell me a little something about what your father did and his background?
Well, he was a chef, and he worked at the University of New Hampshire. He'd worked in other places, but that was the job he had right then. And he was, from what I have, a very good chef. And he worked hard and took care of his family. We had a beautiful home. And he was a good person.
You also had mentioned that he had seen some time in the service.
Oh, yes. He was older, about, 15 years older than my mother. And he was a sailor in the First World War. And he went across to France transporting things 5 times. And then the last time he went across, the ship was named the Covington, and it was torpedoed. But he survived and got home, and then he was out of the service after that.
Were you an only child, Sally?
No, I have twin sisters.
Okay.
They're 4 years younger than I am. They're only a year old. They don't remember their father because they were so young.
And what are their names?
Lucy and Lillian. Well, you want their full name? Sorry. Lillian Jablonski and Lucy Sheehan.
And do they live on the
No,
island?
Lucy Sheehan lives in Texas, and Lillian lives in New Hampshire still.
Okay. Do they have children?
Oh, yes. My sister Lucy has 8.
My goodness.
Wonderful, wonderful children. And Lillian has 2. And Lucy still lives in Texas, and her children, a lot of children live near Texas. They don't all live there. One lives in Georgia.
Do you have much contact with them? Do you get a chance to visit?
I don't get to visit Lucy, but I get to see my sister in New Hampshire every year. And Lucy's been up there lately too, and because she's retired now. She was a nurse. She trained to be a nurse, and she has spent time in New Hampshire a lot lately, and so we get together.
That's about, I think you mentioned, if I counted 8 and 2, is that 10 children all told? Mm-hmm. I wonder if there's any family traits or qualities that you guys from your generation have noticed in the children that have reappeared, something that might have appeared in earlier generations of family. Any qualities or interests, occupational interests or ability?
Well, I don't. You mean within all those children? Well, I just see in Lucy's family. The children. So many of them. There's always been a family togetherness. Always helping each other since they were little, and we've always been very close. All of us, always there for each other.
I gather that you had a happy growing up time.
Yes, I did. Mm-hmm. I really did.
Now, other than mom and dad and grandparents, were there any other adult influences that had a strong impact on you?
Yes, I had a very dear friend. They lived next to us when my father died, and her mother and father had a strong influence on me. They really helped me to grow and mature, and they're always there. And
who would they have been, Sally? What were they?
Well, their names were Esther and Kenneth Barraclough. Mm-hmm. And I was always friends with their daughter, Carolyn. They had another daughter and son, they were older, but Carolyn and I were just like 8 months apart. And we became very close. We worked, when we started to work, when we had to make money to go to college, we worked 5 summers together. Mm. And so just a wonderful, wonderful family that meant so much to me.
Now, who influenced your career choice?
Well, I began to feel that I would like to teach. But I think the one that influenced me maybe the most, of course my mother had influenced me, yes, and this other woman, but the principal in my school encouraged me a lot, and he felt because I felt maybe I couldn't do it. That was I didn't have enough trust in myself anyway. But he encouraged me, and I thought, well, I guess if this person can, somebody else can, other people can do it, I can do it. And I made up my mind I was going to do it.
How old would you have been at that point when?
Oh, I was in high school. I didn't really decide until my junior year in high school. But then I made up my mind that's what I was going to do.
Now, I think you told me that you have maintained contact with some of your friends from school.
Oh, but yes, from high school, yes. Mm-hmm. Not that we keep in contact all the time, but now that we're getting together each summer and having like little reunions. We had the 50th reunion 2 years ago, and then we thought it was so great that we decided, why not do it every year? So we're trying to do that. And
these were some of your buddies that you hung out with?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. When I think of Loretta, we played basketball, we were cheerleaders together, that type of thing. And it was wonderful. I had a wonderful high school years, really.
Do you remember any of the kids from primary school that you knew?
Well, some of the same.
Oh, really?
Some of the same, because all the way through. Except the first 2 years I was in Durham, because my mother didn't leave Durham. But then when we moved to Newmarket, I spent the rest of my years there. So I sort of went along with most of the people.
Did you sleep in your own bedroom? Did you have your own bedroom growing up, or did you share a room with anybody?
No. Well, in Newmarket, we had our own bedroom. I should say, the first house we lived in, we didn't. We had one bedroom for the three of us, but it was a big bedroom. Yes. And then my mother had one. But when we moved to the next house, we each had our own bedroom.
How many times did you move in your life? Have you moved quite a bit?
No, from Durham to Grandma's and then to Newmarket, that's all. Mm-hmm. Until, of course, I moved here. Right. Came to New York.
Now, when you were a youngster, did you have certain chores that you were responsible for?
Oh, yes. We had to help my mother. We made our beds. We did the dishes. As we got older, we ironed our clothes. And as you got older, you realized your mother couldn't do it all. And you realized you had to help her. And we wanted to.
And at a certain point, I guess you also wanted to help out by getting a job that paid some money.
Yes,
do you remember what that job was and how much you made at it?
Well, I only worked summers in hotels.
Okay.
And the pay wasn't that big. I don't really remember. Mm-hmm. We got paid a certain amount for the summer. Mm-hmm. And then any tips that we got were also. But it helped me at that time. I needed, we needed something. But when I went to college, I worked not the first year. My mother wouldn't let me work the first year. She thought, I want you to pay attention to what you're doing and study. And I found out later she borrowed money to help me get through that first year. But then the rest of the time I worked in the cafeteria. And that paid my board and room, which it wouldn't do today maybe, but it paid my board and room. And that was a big one. So I could make money at summers to help pay for books and all the rest. And my mother did whatever she could.
What was the important family holiday that brought all of you together?
Oh, Christmas. Yeah. Christmas was always the one that brought us together.
Did you celebrate the Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, or was it one?
Well, it's mostly Christmas Day for us. We hung our stockings up Christmas Eve. The stockings were a big thing, apples and oranges and nuts, and that we always didn't have them all the time, or special things like that. That was special in those days,
What were you interested in? Did you read? Were you a sports person or like music? Or what were you interested in?
Well, I've always loved music, but I played basketball in high school. I wasn't a great basketball player, mm-hmm. But I played basketball. I was a cheerleader, which I loved. I guess I played some softball, but that wasn't the thing I loved to dance. I learned to dance. I liked to dance. And I can remember the first seventh grade socials that we had to go to when you started to dance.
Sally, we were talking before, and you commented about this next question. You remember the beginning of World War II. You remember Pearl Harbor.
Oh, yes, because I remember I had an Uncle Stanley, that was in World War II, and I knew people. And I remember how rationings that took place because we couldn't get sugar. And I remember instead of putting sugar on my shredded wheat, I sprinkled a little salt, which I don't know why, but salt and a little hot water and salt to make it hot, and then a little milk. But certain rationings we had, we just didn't have. And that's why we started using butter was scarce. And so you ate the oil, which is nothing like it was today, where you had to mix the coloring in it sometimes, which I didn't like. I didn't eat any more than I had to. But those things, there were different rationings for things things we couldn't have.
And blackouts and
well, I don't.
No,
I don't remember.
Okay. But do you remember where you were when the announcement of Pearl Harbor was made, or?
It seems to me I heard it on the radio. That's what seemed like it was a Sunday.
Yes.
I'm not sure, but
yes, no, you're right. It was a Sunday. As a matter of fact, do you remember the end of the war too and the celebrations?
Oh yes. But see, we didn't have TV then.
No,
and we heard everything on the radio. Yeah. So.
What were some of your favorite radio programs? Did you have any? Did you listen to shows?
Amos and Andy, I think, and some of the, of course, as you got older, some of the different cowboys, Gene Autry and things like that. You could listen to their songs. In fact, those were the first movies. Shirley Temple, the first movie I could go to, Shirley Temple and Jane Withers. But then as I got a little bit old, I was allowed to go to some Roy Rogers and Gene Autry pictures, in the afternoon. At 10 cents a movie, which I didn't always have. I remember once I found a nickel, and I hunted and hunted and hunted for another nickel, but I didn't find it.
Do you consider yourself a morning person or a night person, even today? Well, what do you like, the mornings or the evenings?
I like both, really, but I like mornings. But I'm not going to say I always get up early in the morning, but I do like being up early in the morning and waking up with the sun coming up and so forth. But
do you have a favorite season, Sally?
Spring. I don't like the humidity in the summertime, the hot humidity. I love spring. I love winter also, I should say.
Yes.
But we don't, because I grew up in a country where there was always winter. When I was little, there was always snow. And so I always loved it.
How would you define the word old?
Well, I don't think you're old. It's how you feel. I'm getting there, but I don't go around saying I'm old. I think sometimes that word is not good in the vocabulary because it makes you feel that way. So.
Do you remember your very first day of school?
No, but I do remember the teacher, Miss Farley. I remember I was very happy in first grade. Then I remember Miss Chamberlain in second grade, which surprises me because sometimes names I don't remember now. Yeah. People I've known for years, I might come up to you and say, gee, I can't think of your name. But I do remember those two teachers.
Kindergarten
no,
first grade?
No, there was no kindergarten.
First and second? Oh,
first and second, no. If you went to kindergarten, then you had to go to a private kindergarten. There was no kindergarten there. No.
Now, again, you mentioned before, what was the name of that school that you first attended?
Well, I don't know. It was in Durham, New Hampshire. I really don't know if it had a name.
Okay.
It was the elementary school.
Yes.
I'm not sure it had a name.
Okay. I thought that it was the Durham Elementary or something.
Well,
that's why, yeah.
It was an elementary school in Durham.
Now, what other schools did you attend after that?
Then I went to Newmarket Grammar School, starting at third grade when I moved there, and then up to the Newmarket High School.
And then?
And then Keene Teachers College in Keene, New Hampshire. And I went there.
You did your undergraduate work there, did you?
I went there for 4 years.
Yes.
And then I had a job in Hanover, New Hampshire.
And what was the job that you had? Was that a teaching job?
Yeah, a teaching job, yes. First grade in Hanover.
So after 4 years
I was
of
4
college,
years there.
You then
I taught 4 years in New Hampshire.
Okay.
Now, before, when Keene was they called it a normal school before I was there, you didn't have to pay tuition, but you had to promise to teach in New Hampshire for at least 2 years. But it wasn't that way when I went there. and it's become even better and better as years gone. It's much bigger now, but I was very happy with my first job, my teaching job in Hanover, New Hampshire. Way back then, even then, they didn't allow first grade classes to be over 25. And it was a wonderful, wonderful place to start. I had a woman principal who was, you call Bunny, and she was a wonderful person, and she helped you to grow, and I think she helped me a lot. And I had met some wonderful teachers there too. So.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you if you could thank some of your own teachers that you've had over the years. You mentioned Miss Farley.
Yes.
Are there any other teachers that you'd like to be able to thank today, if you could?
There's one I think of right off is Miss Locke. She taught the 6th grade, and my husband had her. I had her. I think everybody in Newmarket had her, but she was a devoted teacher. In those days, women couldn't be married and teach. And during the 6th grade, I had ruptured appendix. I had first measles, then a ruptured appendix. And I was out of school for almost 6 months. It was much more serious in those days. Didn't have the things they have today. And so she suggested that I stay back and do it again, because I did start. She was willing to help me and another girl who'd had rheumatic fever. She says, I'll take you during the summer. You come to my house. And the other girl's mother said, I'll take you and I'll help you. But I think she realized that wasn't good for me. And so I repeated that grade. And I think it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I had confidence in myself after that, and I did much, much, much better. So she was a wonderful, wonderful person. My husband and I went, the year we were going together, the summer we were going together, we went to visit her, and she remembered.
Really?
She was hearing from students all over the world, and she didn't remember right off, but when I told her the situation, oh yes, she remembered. She was marvelous. And I was so glad we went to visit her, because the following year she passed away. But she was a wonderful, wonderful person.
Sounds like a great role model.
Yes, she was. She was.
Sally, were there other role models in the teachers that you had that you can think of?
Oh, yes, let's see. Mr. I'm not going to be able to think of all the names.
It's okay.
As I say, the principal that helped me so much. It's not awful.
It's okay. Don't worry about it.
And he passed away the year after I retired, after I graduated.
Yes.
Mr. Foster, I remember he was a wonderful, wonderful teacher that helped a lot. And I don't know, I just can't.
Yeah, sure.
But there were some wonderful teachers in my life.
What was your favorite subject in school?
Well, let's see. I liked geography and the social studies people. I like that.
And your least favorite subject?
Oh, well, I shouldn't say this. At times, math is my least favorite, but I really shouldn't say that, because when I got the math, when people helped me and I got it, I loved it. So there's a mixture.
Now, what happened when you got out of college? You went to school. You certainly hadn't finished your studies, your formal studies. You went back to school at some point. Where did you go back to school?
Well, I only took, when I came here, when I came to Brentwood, and I was in New Hampshire, I was certified. I had all the credits I needed from being in a teacher's college. And I took many, many in-service credits in Brentwood. Some things that we had to take. The math, Where
did you take them?
In Brentwood.
In service, right in the school system?
Yes. And
so the people came to the district to teach those courses?
Some of it, yes. And some of it was in the summertime. And there'd be certain schools that were used.
Yes, okay.
And we had to take a lot of in-service credits. In the math, the rods, the Cuisenaire rods, I don't know if you remember those. And we had a vision program. And I sometimes wonder why they got rid of some of those good things. I thought the Cuisenaire rods were a good thing to help children see numbers. You know, numbers are numbers, but when they can take the rods and see that 5 little white ones, which are ones, make, you know, there's 5 ones in 5, and there's 2. Take the red rod, 2 and 2, and another white one. So 2 plus 2 plus 1 equals 5. They could see so many of the combinations that make up numbers, and then they
manipulate them.
Yes,
well.
yes, they did it. And then I'd say, well, how do you know that's true? Well, see, and they'd show me. And so you knew they were understanding. But it was a great aid, I think. It wasn't the only thing but it was a great aid, I thought. And the vision program, I went to classes for that. It taught them to listen. They had to look, you flash something on, and then they had to mark it on the paper what it was. It didn't last. They didn't have that in our system too long, but it was a shame because it taught them to concentrate and listen and watch. And I thought it was an excellent program. And we had to go to courses for that, too, to learn about it. I think for 3 years I did that. But it faded out eventually. Why, I don't know.
So where did you get, did you end up with a master's degree or an advanced degree from some institution? Or
no,
you just accumulated the credits to satisfy?
In service.
In service, yes, okay.
Which I had 30.
Now, what year did you come to Brentwood? You mentioned when you first came here.
1955. And there was only really 3 schools, the Southwest, the Northeast, and a village school. And the Southeast was being built. They thought it was going to be done that year, but because it wasn't completed, we taught in churches. I taught in the Episcopal Church, Sunday school area. Others taught in the Presbyterian, and others taught in the firehouse. And then the classes were so big, they had to open another building on Islip Avenue, so they'd have place for teaching. And so it was quite an experience for me because, as I told you, I came from a school that didn't allow over 25 in first grade, and I had 44 at first in a very small, a room. And there was just a leather curtain between my class and the class over here and the class downstairs. So it was an experience. You either could handle it,
The turnover rate must have been terrific in those days of teachers.
Well, I know young teachers just starting out who came that year. I know there's one who taught downstairs from where I was in the Episcopal Church. She left at the end of the year. She couldn't handle it. But, we went into the Southeast that next year, and it was a brand new school, and it was just great.
But enrollment was growing like crazy.
Yes, it was. That's because I know when Dr. Hoyt interviewed us, he told us it's a growing school system. And I'm not sure.
Was it ever?
Was it ever? And I've seen a lot of growth. And there was only like 2 grocery stores in Brentwood, the Fishers on Suffolk Avenue, and then the Colas near the railroad track, crossing the railroad track. And there was the other the shopping areas that are there today were not there then. We did most of our shopping in Bayshore. There was no movie house in Brentwood. There was, if you wanted the movies, you went to Bayshore. And
tell a story of how you came to Brentwood in the first place. How did you hear about the openings here?
Well, Dr. Hoyt had worked in White River Junction, Vermont, and my friend Lucienne had worked under him and knew him. Anyway, we both were thinking about moving on. We wanted to go someplace different, and he had it in the paper that he'd be at this hotel at a certain date, at certain hours. Anybody wishing to come to Long Island to teach, come and see him. So we did. In fact, I think about 5 of us went to see him. And he said, come down in April and I'll show you around the schools and so forth. So we did. And Lucienne and I decided to come here. Because at that time we thought, well, if we don't like it, we don't have to stay. Everybody needed teachers at that point, right then. So,
what did Dr. Hoyt or anyone else tell you about Brentwood before you arrived?
Well,
what did you expect to find here?
Well, he told us, it was a growing system, and how there weren't many schools right now. But and he showed us the schools when he came, and he also took us on a ride down to Bayshore, to Brightwaters, and so forth. and told us how we're so near to the city, and you could go into the city, and you have the railroad service that's right there. And so he was a smart man. I liked him a lot.
Did he then interview you, and as a result of that interview, you got the job even before you got here, or did you?
Oh no, we got the job from the interview.
From the interview.
In the interview, when we came to see him, in April.
Do you remember any questions from that interview, or anything that you remember from that interview that we haven't talked about, other than what you've said? I mean, you've given a good description of it.
I don't think I do.
Then let me ask you this, Sally. What were some of your first impressions of Brentwood when you arrived that you may not have mentioned, and either of the morale or of the colleagues, the people that you worked with that you met? What are some of your first impressions?
Well, my first impression when we came in by train from New York City, when we came for the interview, and we thought, I don't know, it wasn't very big. There wasn't. What is here? And then when he took us to the schools, and we were questioning. We weren't quite sure. And but the more he talked with us and took us around and showed us and told us how much there was nearby, and then we thought, well, we'll give it a try. Lucianne and I. But the other three girls didn't want to. No, they didn't. And but then as I came to teach, I found some wonderful people here. Some wonderful people. In fact, I can only think of two people that maybe I didn't get along with as well in all the 28 years. Really, I worked with some wonderful people.
And as a result,
I feel very fortunate.
You really have some good memories then.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yeah.
What are some of the assignments that you've held, or some of the certifications that you got, the grades that you've taught, that sort of thing, over the years?
Well, I taught first grade most of my life, but I taught second grade twice, 2 years, I think it was. And then third grade 1 year. When they moved us from the East School back to the Southeast School, I was put in third grade. I wasn't that happy at that, in that, but I was there for just a year, and I was put back into second, because I liked the first or the second grade the most. And
so you didn't have to upgrade your certification at all over the years?
Well, I had to take a lot of in-service courses because they made us. There's a lot of things we had to take. Okay. And I took a lot of reading also in the reading and so forth. But I didn't have to have my master's like they do today. I should have.
Well, you had the equivalent. I should have. You had the equivalent, though, of a master's.
Just about. Yeah. But I should have gone. But, you do what you do.
That's right. And time takes over.
Yeah.
Now, who did you work with in the beginning, or let's put it this way, who did you work for? Who was your building?
My principal was Mr. Mitchell, and he was in the Southeast. And then he took certain people, most of his people, over to the East when he moved. And so I still worked with him. And then after that, he moved to Alabama, and I worked under Mr. Haney. And he was great. And so... Did
you mention Mr. Carson at one point, too? Did you?
I didn't work under Mr. Carson, but my Lucianne married Joseph Carson.
I see.
And I know he was a wonderful principal, but I never worked under him.
You remember some of the other teachers that you did work with?
Oh, yes. Way back, there was Mrs. Mitchell, Eloise Mitchell, and then Mrs. Helen Burns. In fact, I used to pick them up. For 5 years, I picked them up and took them to school with me. And Mrs. Cuccinello, I think her daughter teaches even in Brentwood now. I can't think of her married name, but Mrs. Cuccinello and I have been friends for a long time, too. And,
so I take it those people decided to stay in Brentwood and
yes,
didn't
they
leave.
did. Mm-hmm. And then there was Mrs. Manning, lots of wonderful people. Mrs. Smith.
Teaching in the early grades is a very time-consuming process. You're never off, really. You're always thinking of what you can do tomorrow.
True.
Looking, can I adapt this for the classroom?
Yes, and what can I do for that child? I don't know, it doesn't seem to get, what can I do for this one? I can do that. It never stops. It
Are there memories of certain children that you still have, that after all these years, a certain individual children you remember
yes.
for certain reasons?
Well, Anissa Faz, she wrote to me until she was married. She lives in Florida now. And also a boy that I had in Hanover, New Hampshire, Leonard Reesa. He wrote to me until he was in the 5th grade. And he was just a joy, just a joy. I can name others,
Yes.
but there's certain ones that you never forget. And
So there, the tradition of being a role model, you picked up and passed on to other youngsters
I
too.
hope so.
That I'm sure that
Nisa became a teacher. Yes, yeah. She was able to come. They let some nice 5th or 6th graders come to the lower grades and help during their playtime if they wanted to do that. And she came to my class. That's how I got to know her. Just a wonderful young lady.
Was there
I had some others too.
Was there a favorite year, Sally, that you look back and you say, "Oh, that was a good year"?
Well,
I mean, it's a long time, a lot of years.
Well,
so.
I know, but there were a lot of favorite years. But
okay,
I have to say the last year. Not that it was because it was my last year. It's just that I had such a wonderful group of children. Not any big problems, it seemed, that year. You know, some years you can really have some problems, and loads of them that
sure.
It really upset you at times,
Yes.
and you want to do the best you can. So how do you can't do all you'd like to do for them, but you try. But the last year, I think the kindergarten teachers knew I was going to retire. I think they must have picked out a good group or something. I don't know, but they were wonderful.
What
wonderful
year was
group.
that last
That was
year?
the 83.
83.
You know? Yes, 82, 83.
So I take it that the training that you had and your experience up in New England was very helpful to you before you came to Brentwood.
Yes, it was.
Gave you a leg up then.
Yes, it was. It really was.
How did you see your mission in the classroom? What was your purpose? When you got up in the morning and you went to school, what were you supposed to do that day from your perspective?
Well, first, I mean, because I had to teach them and make them, more knowledgeable than they were before. And I also was concerned about behavior and how to help them to, sometimes there was such fighting for nothing. And so its behavior was important to me too, and helping them to like each other and to help each other and be kind to each other and do things that they should be doing in their life. And I hope I did that. I hope I helped in that area.
I'm sure you did. There's a great need for that even today.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What makes you angry?
Angry. Well, angry. I guess learning about how some children are treated really makes me upset. I guess more than angry, but that really hurts me.
What makes
because
you
I've always loved children because my sisters were 4 years younger, and so I was a big sister, and I had to help them, and so I've always been. And then I taught Sunday school when I was in high school, and so children have always been important to me. I love them. I still do. And when you smile at a child, if you see them in the carriage, a little baby, you smile at them today, they'll always usually smile back. They react to you. To goodness, I think.
I think you've answered my next question. What makes you laugh?
Well, happiness and, is laughter and love from family and friends.
Now, we talked earlier about your involvement with the profession itself, and you were saying how you belonged and you were a part of the formative organization of teachers in this district. You were a part of BTA before there was a BTA, weren't you?
Yes, Dr. Hoyt had a group, and I don't really remember if he named it, but I was part of that group, and he wanted people from each school. Of course, there weren't quite as many schools then, and he had people from each school, and then we came, and I remember a few times it was at his home, and we had a meal, and we discussed things, and things that were bothering us, problems that we had, and then
Would this have been administrators there too, or just teachers?
No, it was just teachers to
Just
my
teachers.
memory.
Mm-hmm.
In my memory, it
In
was
the
just
home of the
teachers.
superintendent,
Yes,
with dinner included.
yes,
Yeah.
I can remember that. And then sometimes we go to somebody else's home. But he had also another thing Dr. Hoyt did when I first was here. He had workshops once a month. School was closed for just a half a day, and we had workshops where all teachers went, and like say sometimes it'd be like all first grade teachers would be in one place, and they would discuss problems and how do you solve this and what do you do with this, how to, this type of stuff. And it was very beneficial to all of us. And
Did you learn from one another?
yes, and we learned different ways to do things and different ideas that other people had, and it was very good. He did that for quite a while, but that didn't continue as we got to be more and more schools.
And you became more and more active then in the organization that Dr. Hoyt had started.
Yes.
How did you become more active, and when did that all occur?
Well, I don't really remember the year, but I was a representative from my school, a delegate from my school to go to BTA meetings. And then I was considered the chief delegate, and I had to go to 2 meetings a year to discuss things that my teachers would tell me things they wanted brought forth to that meeting, and then I would come back to them and tell them things that were happening.
Was this every month?
Every month, every month. And, we talked about salary.
And where did you meet then?
We met in the Brentwood Teachers Association in the office on Motor Parkway.
Uh-huh.
And we met there.
In the conference room?
Yes, downstairs.
Now, who would you have met with? Who else was involved in those meetings?
Well, it was teachers from all schools.
Do you remember any of the people that were there with you at that time?
Oh, boy.
Or the leadership, even the leadership of the...
Well, the leadership was Jack Zuckerman when I first started. And then it went to Les Black. He was the leader. And
Joe Hogan?
Joe Hogan is who is now. He just started when I retired. And I enjoyed doing that because you learned a lot about what was going on in the system that you didn't realize before. And we, I feel we helped to solve certain things. And
well, class size alone, you mentioned.
That's right. Because class size, finally, the first grade couldn't be over 28. And so it was quite different from when I first started, when it was, as I said, 44, 45. And then I had 35 for 5 years. And with no helpers. You didn't have aides. And and you had to be in the cafeteria and take care of that situation. So, and you had to be on the playground. You had your turns.
All those duties, yes.
Yes.
In addition to the classroom duties.
Yes.
Right? I remember you mentioned that you had walked also, and that one action that we had where we walked around the administration building.
Yes, which is where the library is now.
Yeah.
Right? And I guess, I don't know if I said before, when I first came here in 55, there was a junior high, like where the village school eventually was, but there was no high school here then. And
that was in Bayshore, I guess. Huh?
They went to Bayshore for high school. But so that's how much it's grown.
Did you have heroes growing up? Do you remember anybody other than your parents and the teachers that we've mentioned? Were there other people that you really
Well, President Roosevelt was sort of a hero to me because he was the president during most of my growing up. So he was a hero for me.
Do you remember the day he died?
Yes. I don't remember the date. But,
No.
But,
you remember hearing about it?
Yeah, I remember hearing about it, definitely. Definitely.
Remember how you felt?
Sad. Sadness.
Yeah. Like a member of the family.
That's right. That's right.
Were you ever afraid to come to work, Sally, in Brentwood?
I don't ever remember being afraid.
Looking back, are there any regrets that you have about anything that might have occurred all the years or might not have occurred? If you have to struggle that hard to find some, I guess you don't.
Of course, I probably do, but I can't think of any regrets right now. But
that's fine.
It was
which of all the things that you've accomplished, here, what are you most proud of?
Well, I'm proud that it seemed that parents liked me, children liked me, respected me, and so I thought I must have done something right. I never had any big problems.
Now you retired. You retired in 1983, but that decision didn't happen the day before. You had been thinking about it. How long did it take you to get ready to make the decision?
Well,
and why did you decide to retire?
A little over a year, I guess. Well, the problems in the classroom were increasing to a certain extent. Not because it was the children's fault, but there were problems. And also, my husband is 10 years older than I. And so I thought, why not retire at 55 if I can? Because life is too short. How do we know how much longer we're going to be together? And in fact, that summer, on my birthday, he had a heart attack. And, but so it worked out. I mean, he's fine, but then he said other problems about it. So I was glad I made that decision. It seemed, I don't know, it just seemed the right thing to do at that time. And
once the decision was made, it was a load off your mind.
I went with it, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when you think about regret, sometimes I wish I hadn't retired as early. But then again, I guess...
Were you 55 when you retired?
Yes, I was. Yes, but I think it was a thing to do because I'd made that decision and there must have been a reason. I always feel you make a decision, I don't care if it's little or big, you better go with it.
And don't look back.
No.
Mm-hmm. And your last teaching assignment was at South, was it?
Southeast.
Southeast. Mm-hmm.
First grade. I was in first grade.
And what was the total number of years that you taught?
Well, the total number was 32, including New Hampshire. Okay, 32.
Yes. Do you remember what you earned your first year?
In Hanover, let's see. Isn't that terrible? Because Hanover paid well.
It's all right. When you say, well, first of all, when I asked the question, there are two possible answers. One here in Brentwood and one up in was it Vermont?
No, New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. And if you remembered either of those figures, I suspect that when you came to Brentwood, you got a raise.
Well, compared to New Hampshire, I got $1,000 more when I came to Brentwood than I was getting in New Hampshire. So, wow.
$4,000 a year up there, something in that area.
Oh, seems like this.
What were you going to say? Seems like it was more than that.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, perhaps.
I'm sorry, I've got a blank.
That's okay.
I've got a blank.
After all these years, who could expect you to hold on to an amount like that anyway? Wow. Did you ever have second jobs? Like a lot of teachers, in order to make ends meet, had to work second jobs for a period of their lives. Did you ever have to do that?
No, I never worked a second job. No.
Did you? In other words, when I say second job, some people did summer school, they did evening school, they did home teaching, they did things outside, but you didn't.
Well, I taught Sunday school, but it was not a job.
Okay, that was a volunteer assignment. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Did you have when you were teaching, did you have a favorite time of the school year? Was there a favorite time?
Well, almost a favorite. It was like going back in the fall when everything is fresh and the children are ready and
the energy
eager to go
high.
and energy is there. That was a sort of a favorite time.
Yeah. So I guess the least favorite time then would have been the pressure was on at the other end.
Yes.
Yes.
Because it seems like after April vacation, May and June seem very long sometimes with the little ones. They were getting restless.
Is there, if you had a chance to do any of this over again, is there anything that you would have done differently?
you'd hope I mean, I know sometimes you lose your patience and you don't want to lose your patience. Not that but, different, I don't know,
You're only human.
you're only human, and I guess, I don't know, I guess I wouldn't do anything differently. I did the best I could do.
That's right.
And that's all you can ask. That's
That's
all
the
that
best answer that anybody could give, Sally.
And that's what I asked of children.
Yes.
Just do your best.
Yes.
Just try it.
You've done a lot of reading over the years. Is there a book is there one book in particular that you might mention that you read that really moved you or had an important influence on you?
That's another blank. I think people had
more of an influence.
Well, I love certain, like Dr. Frost, Robert Frost. I saw him when I was in college, and I saw him when I was in New Hampshire at Dartmouth. And I have books of his that I just really, really enjoy.
So you enjoy poetry?
Yes, I do. I always did. When I was little, I used to make scrapbooks before you cut them out from the paper.
Wonderful.
And so that's one.
What do you think most of our colleagues miss the most when they leave the classroom?
Well, I think they miss the children. I don't know. And the people that you work with. I missed the children when I left. Yeah. But I missed also people that I had worked with and knew and for a long time.
Do you stay in touch with any of your former colleagues?
Oh, yes. In fact, for 7 years, I went back to school every Christmas and took a lot of my little goodies, little things I like to bake. And I'd go and spend time and have lunch with them and give them plates of cookies and things that I had made and visit with them. And as some people moved around, I found myself going to 3 different schools because I wanted to see those people.
Nice.
But then I couldn't do it continually because my mother had a stroke and sickness in the family that I had to be in home and help. And so,
is there anything that you would like to have accomplished that you weren't able to get done, either with the time or energy or other limitations while you were active? Now I realize you had a chance to experience this retirement for a lot of years, and I'm asking you to go back quite a few years to answer that question. Was there something that you would like to have been able to do that you couldn't get done?
I always thought I should have worked harder and got my master's and so forth. But then I thought, well, did it really make that much difference? I don't know.
Okay.
I did.
What have you been doing since retirement?
Well,
we're now in 99, and you retired in 83. You've had a few years to get used to this.
Yes, I have.
And what have you been doing?
When I first retired, I worked we had a daycare at my church, and they need volunteers, and I volunteered a few days a week for that. But then that closed down, and now they hire someone else to use those rooms, and they have a daycare. I taught Sunday school. I became an elder at my church, and now I'm a deacon in my church.
What church is that?
This is Presbyterian Church in Brentwood. And we always took trips home to New Hampshire in the summertime, especially. I'm busy with my family, the house and the lawn and everything, all that type of thing.
That'll keep you busy.
I'm just busy. I haven't traveled as much as some people because my husband's health didn't allow some of it. But I'm busy all the time. I'm busy with people with friends, and going out for lunch and things like that. Things that you can do, and sleeping late if you want to.
And there's still not enough hours in the day, right?
No, there isn't.
What do you have to say to those first-year teachers that are following in your footsteps? Is there anything that you'd like to say to them?
And just never give up, and always love those children. Yeah, if they don't have love, then it's not going to work.
And for the young people that we've talked so much about, what do you hope for them, Sally?
Well, I just hope they'll find their way, that they'll find the niche that they want to work in, and they'll do it with all the best they know how. Because you have to stick with it sometimes. And when I first came to Brentwood, I was feeling a little sad at first because I thought, oh my, what have I got myself into? 44 children and all this, but you don't quit. You don't quit, and it works out. It works out.
What was it that Winston Churchill used to say? Never, never,
Never,
never,
never,
never give up.
Well, that's right. And
What's your favorite word?
my favorite word? I don't know. I guess love is my favorite word because of the thought.
And what's your least favorite thing to do?
Clean the bathroom. I love how it looks when I get through, but it's not my favorite.
What do you think you're going to be doing in 5 years?
Well, probably still some of the same things I'm doing now. I hope I'll be still active as I am right now. And
thank you, Sally.
Good.
Thank you, Sally Andrews, for joining us. And I hope that other folks are going to enjoy watching this as much as I've enjoyed talking with you today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you.